you ever find a beautiful piece of home decor and then you look at the price tag and you cringe because it is so expensive? Well, today we are going to work some magic. We are going to dupe some really expensive items and we are going to save ourselves a ton of cash. My video today is sponsored by Cricut. Here is a scene for you. You're having a party, you want it to be beautiful, you're going to set your table and you need a fantastic tablecloth. Well, I found a beautiful tablecloth that fits right into this storyline. It's this gorgeous hydrangea tablecloth. This crisp tablecloth had pops of blue hydrangeas blooming all over. The only problem with this setting is the cost of this tablecloth. It comes in at the price of $280, which is too much for me to pay. So we are going to recreate this ourselves. So the first thing that we need is a tablecloth. Well, I know that they have really affordable tablecloths at Ross. So I headed over there and I found the perfect tablecloth. It's a fantastic color. It's a perfect blank slate to work with. We can add all kinds of embellishments to this tablecloth. And it was only $9.99, which is a great price. Now I will say right now that my tablecloth is not as large as our inspiration tablecloth, but that's going to be the only difference. So now we've got a tablecloth. We need to find some hydrangeas. I headed over to Hobby Lobby and I was rummaging through the fabric section. I spotted a bolt of fabric that had beautiful blue hydrangeas on it. These hydrangeas look so similar to our inspiration hydrangeas. And it was my lucky day because all the fabric was 40% off, so I got a yard of this gorgeous hydrangea fabric. The variations of blue and the shades of green and the leaves is exactly what I was looking for. If you're wondering how we're going to add the hydrangeas to our tablecloth, I was wondering the same thing. And then I remembered a couple months back, I did a dupe of a pillow covering that had this gorgeous fawn spotted fabric on it. And I used some ultra hold iron-on adhesive, again, that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. So I picked up another package of this. There's a yard per package and the price is only $3.49, which is awesome. We have all the materials we need to create our tablecloth, so let's get going. The first thing we're gonna do is take our 1 yard of fabric, flip it over so that the unfinished side is facing up, and then we're gonna get our iron-on adhesive. Now there are two sides to this adhesive. There's the side that has the paper on it, and then there's a sticky side. You're gonna put the sticky side on top of the fabric right now facing down. Then I grabbed my iron. My iron is set at a medium-high heat. Mine's actually on the cotton setting right now. I placed it over the top of the iron-on adhesive. You want to move your iron around the surface slowly, leaving it in place for about 2 seconds before you move on to a different area. Once the entire surface of the iron-on adhesive had been heated up properly, the fabric and the adhesive fuses together. Now the fabric actually stiffens up, so we've got the iron-on adhesive on the back, and the good thing about having this iron-on adhesive is that now it's not going to fray because we're going to cut out our hydrangeas. Now this is kind of a time-consuming process, you guys. This is the time where you can cut out any design that you want. If you want hearts or stars or pumpkins, this is the time to do it. So I got some fabric scissors and I began to cut out all of these hydrangeas individually. Cutting out these hydrangeas and the leaves will give us the look that we're going for. Now that everything's cut out, I can position my hydrangeas over the surface of my tablecloth. Now I spread them out evenly, and now we can adhere our fabric hydrangeas to the tablecloth. I'm going to remove the protective covering from the adhesive on the fabric and then place my fabric hydrangeas where I want them permanently on the tablecloth. I would definitely recommend putting something underneath your fabric at this point. You don't want to burn your countertop or your table, so do it on top of an ironing board, or you could even put a towel underneath. I took my iron and I put it over the top of my fabric. This time you're going to want to leave it in one area for 8 seconds. This heats up the adhesive and fuses it to the tablecloth or whatever surface you want it to be fused to. I slowly moved around the top of the fabric. At this stage, I'm going to repeat this process with all of my fabric hydrangeas. I'm going to remove that protective paper coating, place the hydrangeas in the area I want, and then press the iron firmly over the fabric. Leave it in one area for 8 seconds and then slowly move it around so the entire surface of the fabric has been heated up properly. I had a whole bunch of hydrangeas to adhere to this tablecloth, but it went by fairly quickly, and now you can see how fantastically this fabric fuses to the tablecloth. And now we are finished with our tablecloth. I'm gonna try and stand back as far as I can so you guys can see this. Look at how pretty this tablecloth looks with all these blue hydrangeas on it. I absolutely love it. And look at how beautifully this fused to my tablecloth. It looks like it's one piece. It looks like it was supposed to always be there. It definitely looks like it was professionally done, which I absolutely love. You always want your pieces to look like they put time and effort and they look like you purchased them from the store, which is exactly what this looks like. Let's take a quick look back at our inspiration tablecloth. If you remember, that tablecloth was $280, which was far too much for us to pay. And after calculating all the costs that went into creating this beautiful hydrangea tablecloth, it only ended up costing me $22.24, which means that we saved over $250 creating our own gorgeous tablecloth. This was definitely worth it. I am so happy we recreated this gorgeous tablecloth and saved so much money in the process. I like the way this tablecloth turned out so much, I'm just gonna leave it here for the rest of the time so you can admire it. Now our next dupe is actually a dupe within a dupe. Our first item that we are going to recreate is this beautiful Lenox plate. I love the size, the shape, and the flowers that are on. Those are so pretty. And look at that gold rim around the edge. It's just simply stunning. The price of this plate is $46.95, which isn't bad, but it is still pretty expensive for one singular plate. Now we are going to combine this dupe with another dupe. The second one is this Castilla plate and plate rack from Payne's Gray. I love the way this looks. The gold plate holder is so pretty, and the price of this item is $82. So now can you see the vision? We've got our plate and we have the plate rack that we are going to combine. So I needed something that would fit the bill to combine these pieces. Well, while I was at Ross, I happened to come across this gorgeous plate and stand. It's very similar to our inspiration piece. It has the same feeling, the same design, the same size, but not the same price. I was able to purchase this piece for the low clearance price of $4.99. Now I am a little iffy about the plate that's in the center. The surface looks like it's vinyl, so we are definitely going to be changing that. The first thing that we need to do is separate these two pieces. So I got out my Athena drill and I removed the screws. Once I pulled out the white plate, it was actually like this big, thick, chunky particle board plate. And then the black metal was in great shape, and we are going to change that color as well. So what I'm going to do is take both of these pieces outside. I'm going to start with the plate rack. So I placed that down upside down, and I got some gold Rust-Oleum spray paint, and I began to spray this piece. I sprayed the underside. I made sure that the legs of this metal stand was completely coated in the gold spray paint. Then I let it dry for an hour. While this stand is drying, we are going to move on to our wood circle. So I got some white Krylon satin spray paint. I painted the rim of the plate and then the surface of the top. Once this was completely covered in the spray paint, I let it dry for an hour. And while that's drying, we can come back to the metal stand, flip it back over, and then continue to paint the entire thing in the gold spray paint. Once it was completely coated, I let it dry for an additional hour. Now we have our freshly painted pieces that are ready to be embellished. We're going to start with the wood round. Now on our inspiration piece, this Lenox plate had a gold rim around it, so we're going to mimic that by using some Rub and Buff. I have a tube of Rub and Buff in the color Gold Leaf, and I got a tissue. I added a dab of the Rub and Buff to the tissue and then wiped it along the rim of the wood round. I went around the circumference of this plate so it had a stunning gold rim. This Rub and Buff just takes a few minutes to dry. It's more like a wax as opposed to a paint. So in no time we have a beautiful new rim around this wood round. To create our blue florals and gold accents, we are going to head on over to our Cricut design space. In my Cricut design space, I hit New Project, and then I went over and I clicked on Images. In the search bar, I typed in Flower Bunch with Leaves. Several options came up. I scrolled down and I selected this pretty bunch of flowers right here, and then I hit Add to Canvas. In my design space, I can now size it to the correct size that I need that will fit on my plate. And then I went over and I hit Make It. I am not going to save my project, but I will decide on the mat and then hit Continue. And then I hit Continue again. And now I can select my material. So I hit a premium vinyl, and then I always select more on the pressure. I'm going to be using a few pieces of this removable vinyl that came in a multi-pack. I hit the flashing arrow button, which loaded my material into my maker. Then I hit the flashing start button, which began the cutting process. Once everything was finished cutting, I hit that flashing arrow button again, which removed my material. Now I can weed away all of the excess vinyl from around my floral design. Then I took some transfer tape, placed it over the vinyl, and adhered them both together with my scraper tool. Then I removed the back. Now I can take my vinyl floral design and place it on the edge of my plate. I pressed it firmly to the surface with my scraper tool and then removed the tape. Our inspiration piece had these vines that were wrapped around the flowers, and so we were going to do the exact same thing. In my Cricut design space, I hit New Project, and then I went over and I selected Images, and then I typed in Vines, and several options came up. I scrolled down and I selected this vine right here, and then I clicked on Add to Canvas. Now that it's in my design space, I can size it to the size that I need. I did a small one and then I duplicated it, and then I made this vine larger, and then I duplicated it a few more times, and then I decided I needed one more of the small one. And then I hit Make. It's going to give me the option to save or not. I'm not going to save this. And then I selected on the mat, and now I can click Continue. I am going to select my material, which is a premium vinyl, and then hit More on the pressure. I loaded my blue vinyl into the maker and then hit the start button, which began the cutting process. Once it was done, I hit the flashing arrow button, which released my material. I immediately continued the cutting process by loading my gold vinyl into the maker. Once it was cut, I hit the flashing arrow button, which released my material. I'm going to weed away the excess vinyl from the vines. Once this process was done, I put the transfer tape over the top, pressed it firmly to the vinyl with my scraper tool, and now I can remove the backing and place these vines sporadically throughout the surface of the wood round. These vines look so cute, and they are so similar to our inspiration piece. Now I'm going to do the same thing with those oval gold inserts that go inside of the leaves. I simply just weeded away the excess vinyl, put the transfer tape over the top. Now I can add these gold ovals right inside the leaves. Now they do line up, which is so convenient, so I just simply pressed the vinyl in the correct spot that fit right over the vines. And just like that, we are done creating this design on top of our wood round. We are now going to take both of our pieces, the gold stand and the wood round, and put them back together. I simply just put that round right back in place, flipped it over, and replaced those screws. And now we are completely finished. Look at how pretty our plate stand looks, you guys. The stand and the design on top is simply stunning. What a gorgeous decorative piece to have. This could be displayed in so many areas of your home. We're going to be calculating the cost of this in a different way. We're going to count the plate and the stand as one piece. So that was $128.95 if I added both of those pieces together. After calculating all the costs that went into creating my beautiful plate and stand, it was only $17.99. So we saved over $100 from our inspiration pieces by creating this ourselves. I think ours looks so similar to both of our inspiration pieces, but it definitely came in at a much more affordable price. If you like dupe videos, home decor, DIYs, room transformations, then you have come to the right place. I post weekly videos on all things related to the home, and I would love to have you subscribe so I can share those with you. Now, our next dupe is one that I've actually been keeping on the back burner for a long time. I've been wanting to do it forever, and today is our day. Now, it's going to be a little different than we typically do, but what this dupe is are these wax seals. I've seen them on Etsy, I've seen them on Instagram, and on Etsy I actually found some. You can buy a package of 50 for $48.45. I know that we can recreate some for so much less. Now, as I had mentioned last week, I'm going to be having a bridal shower, and it's this weekend, and so I thought having some wax seals would be so pretty to put all over the place, especially on some party favors for my guests to take home. So while I was looking for party favors, I was at Hobby Lobby in the party section, and I came across these wax seals. One of them was a leaf, and one of them said thank you, and they were on clearance. The leaf was only 94 cents, and the thank you was $1.12. This is a very inexpensive way to test out this wax seal technique. Now, we are not going to just make some wax seals. We are going to, of course, embellish them. So what we're going to need first are some paper rounds. Now, Cricut has some scrapbook paper, and I selected this beautiful floral paper. Instead of me cutting out all of these rounds, I'm going to let my Cricut Maker do it for me.
We're back in our Cricut design space, and I hit new project. This time I went over to shapes and I selected a circle, and then I went up and I sized it to the size that I needed, and then I duplicated it a whole bunch of times because we want a lot of circles. And once I had the circles, I went over and I selected make, and I don't want to save this project. I clicked on the mat and then continue. Now I can click continue again, which brings up my material, and I'm using a medium cardstock, and I selected more on the pressure.
I loaded my scrapbook paper into the Cricut Maker and then hit the start button. Once the circles were done, I hit that flashing arrow button, which released my material. Now, these circles just popped right off the mat. They hardly stuck at all, so now I have these perfectly formed circles that are going to be a one-of-a-kind backdrop for our wax seals. I am not going to be using wax. Instead, I am going to be using some hot glue because the hot glue will dry semi-transparent. So what I'm going to do is add a dab of hot glue. Now you're going to want to make sure that the hot glue covers the entire surface of the scrapbook circle before you take your stamp and put it inside. So once the circle was covered in the hot glue, I took my thank you stamp and I pressed it into the hot glue. You're going to want to leave it there for about a minute. Once that minute was up, you can pull away the stamp and you have this beautiful design. So I just continued to add that hot glue and then take the stamp and press it into the hot glue. Oh, and I should mention that you're going to want to put a non-stick surface underneath this because you don't want that hot glue to stick to whatever surface that you're working with. I'm actually using my baking Silpat. Don't worry, I will give this a thorough wash before I start using it again with food, but the Silpat worked so great. Nothing stuck to it. So I just continued to add the hot glue to all of my round circles and then press the stamp into the hot glue. Once I was finished with all of my thank yous, I moved on to our smaller circles. Now the larger circles were 1 inch in diameter. These are 3/4 inch in diameter, and this scrapbook paper is actually double-sided. You've got the flowers on the one side and then you have this pretty pink design on the other side. So for our smaller flowers, we're going to be flipping it over and using this pink side. So again, all I did was I added the hot glue to the scrapbook paper and then took my smaller leaf stamp and pressed that into the hot glue. Left it there for about a minute and then removed it. I continued to do this process with all of my round circles to get these beautiful wax seals. We have a bit of a problem. You cannot see the design that we put into the hot glue when it's semi-transparent. So to remedy that, what I did was I headed over to the Dollar Tree and I got a gold paint pen. So what I'm going to do with this paint pen is I'm going to trace around the raised detail that we have on our seal. I traced over the design to reveal the design and make it more prominent. And when I pressed down on the hot glue, it created a ridge around the edges, so I'm going to outline the ridge as well. This simple step made all the difference in these wax seals. Now you can see the thank you perfectly, plus the gold makes our wax seals feel classy because it brings in a metallic. Once I was done tracing these out in the gold on the thank yous, I moved on to the leaves. Now these leaves were so easy to do. They were very small, so it only took me a couple minutes to trace out the leaf and the raised rim around the edge. These are such a fun design detail that you can use in a variety of different ways. Now I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can use these for a party favor. Now what I'm going to do is get some cardboard gift bags. We're going to add some tissue paper and some fancy chocolates to our gift bag. And to tie it all together, we are going to use some ribbon. Now this blue ribbon is ribbon that I used in my projects last week. I got it in the clearance aisle at Hobby Lobby, and to tie the projects that we did last weekend with our goodie bags, we are going to use this same blue ribbon. So I cut a segment of this blue ribbon and then I got some hot glue. I added hot glue to the end of the ribbon, then took one of my leaf wax seals and put it into the hot glue. Once that was done on one end, I moved on to the other and added another leaf wax seal over on that side. Now I can take my ribbon and thread it through the handles and then tie it into a bow. So how cute are these little tails that have the little wax seals on them? This is so cute for our first bag. Now our second bag, we are simply going to lay it on its side, then take our scrapbook round, place that in the center, and then press our stamp to the middle. After a minute, I peeled away the stamp and now my wax seal is attached to the gift bag. We want to highlight it with that gold so it can be more prominent. You can actually see the thank you. And then of course, we've got to finish it off with the same blue ribbon that we used on our first bag. All right, we've got 2 down. The last one is going to be to just take that ribbon, thread it through the handles, tie it into a bow, then add a little bit of hot glue to the center of the bow, and then press in one of our wax seals to the center. And here's what this one looks like. Look how cute that is. So we have 3 options of how to decorate our goodie bags in 3 different ways, but they all coordinate together beautifully. And then of course, the last one is to put it on an envelope. I simply just added a scrapbook round to the envelope, put some hot glue in it, pressed the stamp to it, and then highlighted it in the gold. Let's go back and remember our Etsy seals. These were $48.45 for 50. After calculating all the costs that went into creating my seals, it was $5.41. And that is with purchasing everything that I needed to create these wax seals in the future. So really, we got such a bargain, and I absolutely love the way that these wax seals look. They are a unique design that is so fun to have. I loved all of the dupes that we did today. We were able to save ourselves so much money by recreating things ourselves. By DIYing, you can live beautifully and you can do it on a budget. The bridal shower is this weekend, so if you want to see some highlights, then head on over to Instagram. I will be posting on my stories. Well, I hope you got some inspiration today or some ideas. Make sure that you're subscribed so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching.